With the third overall pick in our Dynasty draft, Jon trades up with me to take Christian McCaffrey.
On second down, pass is caught. That is McCaffrey. And in the foot race, McCaffrey to the end zone.
Before we discuss Christian McCaffrey being taken third overall, we must discuss the trade that went down between Jon and I in order for Jon to get that pick in the first place. Jon informed me that he wanted to move up to get Christian McCaffrey because we both discussed who we felt would go in the top four, and we both thought Zeke would be the one dropping to him at 5. Jon, being an Eagles fan, does not want Zeke on his team. And we guessed that Zeke would be there at 5 because we assumed that Bubba at 4 would not want Zeke on his team, being the Eagles fan that he is. I, not really caring about having a Cowboy on my team, was willing to trade back to get a guy that I viewed in the same tier. And the trade that we did, Jon ended up moving up in the 1st and 7th round by 2 picks each. I ended up moving up in the 2nd and 4th round by 2 picks each. So Jon moved up, got his guy, Christian McCaffrey, number 3 overall. As far as the pick, Christian McCaffrey, number 3 overall, I love this pick. This is who I would have taken at number 3. Let's go down the workhorse checklist. Over 5'10", check. Over 215 pounds. Well, see, when Christian McCaffrey came out of college, he was 202 pounds. 2 years into the league, I'm going to say it's safe to say he put on about 5 pounds, putting him at around 207 at the start of last year. But now, if you look at the picture in front of you, Christian McCaffrey has shown that he looks much bigger this year. So it's not far-fetched to say he could be at the roughly 215-pound mark right now. Third on the checklist, on the good side of the age apex, yes. Now, I touched on this in the last video. Some of you might have listened to that and questioned what it is. Let's go into detail about this. The age apex is a chart that can be found at apexfantasyleagues.com, and basically what it represents is the peak age for running backs. Now, the peak age for running backs, as shown on this graph, is 24 years old. Christian McCaffrey was 22. So he is on the correct side of the age apex, as well as Saquon Barkley. Now, how, you might be asking, did we get this graph, and how did we get these numbers? This is from the same stat that I used on Saquon Barkley's video. This takes the 150 entries from every running back since 2000 that has scored over 230 points. And it puts them in their category by age. Now, as you can see, only 2 people at the age of 21 have had what's considered a peak season of over 230 points. That one of which was Ezekiel Elliott. This stat is only updated up to 2017, so Saquon is not on there. Otherwise, he would be added to that list. The number then jumps to 11 at 22, 15 people at 23, and hits its peak at 25 people at the age of 24. So from what it shows on this graph, the typical prime for an NFL running back is the age 24 to 28. At the age of 29, you see the numbers really start to dip from 18 to 7 to 6 to 3 at 31 years old. So running backs, their shelf life in this league is a lot shorter than a wide receiver or a quarterback. That's why I think it's very important to get a workhorse running back on the correct side of the age apex. The age apex represented here is 24 years old. Next up on the workhorse checklist after being on the correct side of age apex is the ability to receive the ball. Nobody's going to argue with me that Christian McCaffrey is an elite receiving running back. I mean, over 100 receptions last year. That is unheard of. Christian McCaffrey's season was also historic, just like Saquon's, in that he broke a record last year. The most receptions ever for a running back in a season. The previous record was held by Matt Forte. He broke the 100 reception mark and landed at 102 for the season. McCaffrey landed at 107 last year at 22 years old. Matt Forte did his 102 season at 28 years old, so towards the end of his peak. I mean, breaking history in your second year in the league is phenomenal. Now, you might be thinking he is another regression candidate because he broke an NFL record. Yes, he may regress in receptions, but you have to take it into context. His offensive coordinator is Norv Turner. Norv Turner, you might remember, was the head coach of the Chargers back when they had LaDainian Tomlinson. Now, some of you might think, okay, LaDainian Tomlinson, he's, Hall of Fame running back. That's great. LaDainian Tomlinson was the ultimate fantasy football running back. His 2006 year, he broke the record for most touchdowns for a running back, had 28 that year total. Needless to say, that is the greatest PPR season of all time for a running back. He owns that while being coached by Norv Turner. He owns the fourth greatest running back season of all time. He owns the 21st greatest, the 22nd, and the 32nd. This is all in his prime. He has 5 seasons that are in the top 35 of all time. I mean, he was an absolute stud for fantasy for several years. And the same guy that was coaching him and calling the plays for him is now calling the plays for Christian McCaffrey. Yes, you might think a regression's coming, but I don't think much of a regression because Christian McCaffrey is elite at receiving the ball. He was the number 8 overall pick in the NFL draft, and he was picked to be an elite receiving weapon for Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers. Wrapping up this workhorse checklist, after the receiving threat, he can make people miss. I mean, he had one of the best elusive ratings last year of all running backs. Run through people. That is something that he's a little bit on the weaker side. He, like I said, he's no Saquon Barkley. He's probably 10 to 15 pounds lighter, so he doesn't have the size behind him to run through guys like that. But unlike Saquon Barkley, he actually has an offense around him that can make some things happen. Cam Newton is a running quarterback. Every running quarterback in the NFL opens up space for their running back. Overall, John, give you an A+. You got the guy at number 3 that I would have taken at number 2. He's a Tier 1 Dynasty running back. Very high floor with his receiving game. Has the potential to be a workhorse. Is on an offense with an offensive coordinator that loves to make running backs a workhorse. On the correct side of the age apex. There's not much not to like about Christian McCaffrey. Great pick.